to let us know everything that's going on. Of course, a verdict handed down by the jury today. And just moments from now, it's 4:53, we're expecting actually that bail hearing to start at 5 o'clock in Lower Manhattan. Let's take a live look, a full screen of the picture of the courthouse here. It's been quite an interesting day. There's a lot of people outside the courtroom, as we can see. Alex, my producer, is helping her out here. Can you turn the volume just a little down there? Yeah, that's better. Okay, great. Listen, we are waiting any moment, as I said, just about 6 minutes from now. Let me bring you up to speed. This all started, of course, this morning. After almost 2 months in a Manhattan federal courtroom, a jury delivered a split decision to the former rap superstar Sean Diddy Combs. They spent 14 hours deliberating. Then they convicted Combs on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution, but they acquitted him of the more serious charges, racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking. And those were really important because he was acquitted on those, and those are charges that could have put him behind bars for the rest of his life. Combs' 55-year-old man was overwhelmed as the court for hearing the verdicts. He wiped his face, he kneeled, he vowed in prayer, he turned to his family and said, "I'll be home soon." His relatives have been in the court, his children and his mother, most days, and definitely today. And now his convictions do carry a maximum sentence of 10 years, meaning he will likely face some prison time. We just don't know how long, and of course he'll get credit for time served. Each count carries with it a maximum of 10 years. This was quite some trial that we heard explicit testimony, especially from star witness, his longtime girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. So once again, you're looking at live pictures outside of the courthouse in Lower Manhattan. This is breaking news because we are waiting to find out from the judge if he will allow Combs to walk out of the jail. Now, let me tell you, right after the verdict, the judge told the lawyers, the defense, and the prosecutor they had to come back at 1 o'clock today, and they had to have arguments as to why Combs should stay in incarceration until his sentencing later this summer, or whether he could be released. And as you can imagine, the defense team said, hey, he has no criminal record, he has been involved in other things before, never charged, but he should be able to
together. We bring more. Beef. That's what's for dinner.
Lawyers and the lawyer for Cassie Ventura pushing back hard on that, describing him as dangerous and flight risk. And so they are hoping that he will stay locked up until he is sentenced on this charge of engaging in prostitution. Now we're coming up on 4:57. In just a minute or so, we're going to toss to the Fox 5 5 o'clock newscast here in New York City. Again, I'm reporting to live from our newsroom here. And we are going to carry every second of what happens. As I said, we have reporters inside the courtroom. We will know within seconds what that decision is. I should say that, as you well know, if you've been watching this stream, this is a case that has generated enormous interest around the country. And there are a lot of people that are sort of gathering around the courthouse. That's prompted the NYPD to bring out the barricades and add extra security down there because even this evening, Sean Diddy Combs could be walking out, at least not exactly a free man, but at least out on bail until his sentencing. And you can imagine there were people cheering when the verdicts were handed down, especially when he was not convicted of the most serious RICO charges that he's facing. They could have sent him to prison for a very long time. And also, the government could have seized his assets as well. Now, I said we are getting ready any minute now for that hearing. So let's review here some of the more important events from today. It seems like everyone has been following this trial, but if you haven't, some of the highlights involve that Combs was accused of using trafficking sex workers, bringing them around for so-called freak nights, these days-long sessions, and 2 of his former girlfriends, one who used a pseudonym and the other, Cassie Ventura, who testified in court, that they did so and participated in many Sessions against their will. So you're looking now at a live picture of the courthouse, and any minute we're going to take you to what the judge decides. Will Diddy get out or won't he? And we'll also take your comments and questions. So keep it right here, because in minutes from now I'm going to check with our producer, and we're going to be tossing to the website newscast just about to start. So we'll get you right there, because that'll have our reporters right on the ground, Lisa Evers and Arthur Chian, who give us live reports outside the courtroom. We can also have an attorney present to answer any questions as to what might be happening. But the jury deliberated for about 14 hours. It's quicker than a lot of legal experts thought would happen. And of course, yesterday they were able to come to a decision on 4 of the 5 counts. And then they couldn't reach a decision on the most serious charge, the RICO charge, racketeering and conspiracy. So the judge said, listen, you got to keep deliberating. He sent them home for the night. They came back, and really in under an hour, they had a verdict on all 5 counts. And of course, as we said, he was only found guilty of engaging in moving people around for the purposes of prostitution. So the other charges, though, he was more serious, that had more time attached to them. He was found not guilty of. So it'd be interesting to hear what the jurors had to say. It was 8 men, 4 women, ranging ages between 50 and 70. So it'd be interesting if the jurors talk afterwards to see how those deliberations were going and what brought them to this decision. We're going to take our newscast now. Not here yet. Alex? Oh yeah, let's take a look on Live View 5 and see how we go. We have our anchors ready there. Another picture. This is the picture of sort of the scene, the circus scene outside the courthouse. There's been a lot of Diddy supporters, some against him, that have come down there and pulled off some crazy antics, some having to do with some of the testimony in the trial, and others not so much. But you can see there's quite the crowd out there. It's media, it's lawyers, it's fans of Diddy, it's people who don't like Diddy. There's all kinds of people out there, family members. A lot has been said. As famous as he is and as powerful as he is, we did not see a lot of celebrities attend his trial. We did see Kanye West show up for about a half an hour, and he had to go to the overflow room and he only stayed a short time and then left. It's not clear whether Diddy knew he was even there. But a lot of the celebrities that he had all those white parties with, none of those showed up, and it probably is because of that damning video of him. You can see Diddy beating his girlfriend Cassie, something he apologized for later on Instagram, and that was played multiple times during this trial. All right, Alex, and how we doing? Should we go to our newscast now? Yeah. Okay. Very good. Very good. Oh, I know, we're a little late because we have a sporting event. That's right. My bad. Forgot about that. That's okay. But let's recap just a little bit. I have an echo in my ear, so I'm talking loud. So my producer, we're working out the kinks in live television for you right here, live streaming anywhere. And if you have any questions, you can put them up, because we do have an attorney present that we can get the answers for you too. Just a minute. Let's take a live look at the outside. Of course, you can see the NYPD there for 1 second. We'll fix that. And here we are live outside the courthouse in Lower Manhattan. And you're looking at a live picture outside the courthouse in Lower Manhattan. Yeah.
We're following breaking news as we come on the air tonight. Sean Diddy Combs acquitted of the most serious charges against him. These are live pictures from the courthouse, where we are now waiting to learn if he will be released from jail. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Natasha Burma.
Good evening, Bianca Peters in for Steve. Diddy found guilty on 2 of the 5 counts that he was facing. They are the lesser offenses, so his defense team has asked for his release.
Diddy's bail hearing is scheduled to begin at any moment now. The judge asking both sides to submit letters arguing for and against his release.
Now, Diddy is released from jail. He would likely be subject to specific conditions while awaiting sentencing, as his legal team has proposed a $1 million bond and travel restrictions as well.
And this morning, Diddy was found not guilty of racketeering conspiracy and 2 counts of sex trafficking, but he was found guilty on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. So that means he could still face prison time, but may be released while awaiting sentencing.
Also, right now, we are waiting for the judge's decision on that. So let's get right over to Lisa Evers, who's been outside the courthouse all morning long into this evening. Lisa, what are you hearing?
Well, Bianca and Natasha, just think about this. That verdict came out early this morning, and Sean Diddy Combs has been in a holding pen the entire day waiting for this whole issue to be resolved. Instead of resolving that bail question right after the verdict was read, the prosecutors asked for several more hours in order to try and put their position together, which their position being they want to keep Sean Diddy Combs behind bars, even though he was cleared of the 2 most serious charges in this case. But let's bring in right now criminal defense attorney and former Manhattan prosecutor Jeremy Sallin to get some understanding about this whole bail process that's going on right now. Jeremy, thank you so much for being with us. A little unusual for them to delay the bail hearing like this so many hours after the verdict?
Well, there's nothing usual about this case. Everything about it's unusual, especially when you think about the magnitude of the charges that were brought against Sean Combs and to be cut down, for lack of a better term, by the prosecution right at the knees, leaving him with a crime that does not mandate incarceration. He's already been in for 10 months, and now it's a very fair question to ask. Bail Reform Act aside about keeping him in, why should he not get out when he's not facing mandatory incarceration?
But what at this point would you say the prosecution's or the prosecutors' main concerns are about if they let him out on bail?
I think there's an integrity check here. Do I really believe, or do they really believe, that he's a danger to the community at large, he's a danger to any particular people, that he's not going to return to court? That's a hard stretch, considering the man came down prior to being in charge, the man surrendered his passport, there's been no allegations since the accusation began that he's made any threats, and the bottom line is all of those things he's accused him of in terms of violence, guess what? He was acquitted, not a conviction.
Right, and I think that's the thing that's so hard for us to understand. So one of the bail denials, there were several attempts to get him bail all the way through this process. The prosecution said, well, we're worried about him intimidating witnesses. But that won't even be a point right now because he was cleared of the sex trafficking and the RICO charges, right?
Yeah, I think it's a heavy lift, even more so than the RICO charge itself. The prosecution with a straight face saying, this man is a danger to society, this man is a danger to any particular women, this man is a risk of flight. Absolutely not. The evidence doesn't bear it out in terms of what he's been convicted of, and nor does the history in terms of his compliance with returning to court or behaving and following the judge's instructions. I think they come up empty-handed, but again, there's something called the Bail Reform Act, which says, in substance, barring exception, he should be held in.
And then in terms of the final decision, that should be the judge, right? That will make that decision based upon these letters that he's gotten, that Natasha and Bianca were talking about from the prosecution and the defense.
Yeah, he's going to have to assess everything. He's going to be the arbiter of everything. The defense is saying, that's $7 million. Combs will easily make that be out. We can monitor him. We can regulate where he travels to with certain jurisdictions he can go. It can be done, and there's really no reason from a practical standpoint. And to be clear, he, yes, faced up to 10 years in prison, theoretically consecutive. That's never going to happen to 20 years. We're talking potentially months and nominal years if he's ultimately sentenced to that.
For that, on the transportation for prostitution for charges. But then in terms of the conditions and that they would have to satisfy, there were other things that he had offered in the past that were turned down by the government, an ankle monitor bracelet, having 24-hour security watching him. What about that? Do you think there'll be special circumstances or conditions that maybe a regular person, I shouldn't say regular, but another detainee with a similar conviction would be not asked?
I think a regular detainee with a similar conviction would not have to have an ankle bracelet with 24/7 monitoring by security. Hand in your passport. Defense counsel already has that. Stay in certain venues, drug tests. Don't leave New York or Florida where you reside. Post bond if you need to, in terms of the $1 million. That's what's being asked by the defense. Those are reasonable things to ask. Is he going to return to court? Yes. If you have evidence that he makes a threat, you put him back in.
And then you've tried many cases. What role does his family presence have? It's been very strong, very consistent, especially this last final week. His mother's been there every single day. He said his 85-year-old mother, in one of the defense application, he needs to be the main caretaker for his 85-year-old mother, Mrs. Janice Combs, who's been here every single day, and also be a father to his 3-year-old baby daughter. And then we've seen the other kids, the grown kids in there, and other extended family members. What effect does that have on a judge in this kind of decision?
Family ties are critical to show community ties. Family ties are critical to show you're not going to flee and you're going to return to court. However, let's not overstate. I think the defense has to be careful. Well, if he's a primary caretaker, who's been taking care of him for the past 10 months? If he's a primary caretaker for a young child, obviously someone else has been doing it. Let's not overstate, but let's also be very clear. They showed their support. They came for him. They're available for him. They're going to ensure his return.
They offered one of the bail packages previously that was denied by the judge and by the court was $50 million. Do you think this is going to be, we're going to be in the 7 figures to 8 figures?
Assuming that the judge agrees to release him, it's either going to be releasing or subject to certain conditions, or it's going to be much, much more nominal in terms of what that dollar amount is. There's no reason, if it was that high or higher, when you're talking about violent, ugly crimes, they don't exist. They're gone. Granted, I will say this, the prosecution at the time of sentencing can raise that evidence, even though he was...
Big trucks can be intimidating. If you've been seriously injured in a truck crash, call Gruber Losses today. Trucking law can be extremely complicated. You don't want to take on the insurance company alone. Gruber Losses has the experience, the resources, and of course, the results. We know truck law. We know the rules and regulations. We know what it takes to win. Call Gruber Losses. One call, that's all.
For his first night out after this verdict was released. Anyway, that's the latest here from federal court. Natasha and Bianca, back to you in the studio.
All right, Lisa, thanks so much. Keep watching Fox 5 for continuing coverage of this breaking Diddy verdict. We're going to have more legal analysis coming up.
On record for the year so far. Let's have a listen in on what it sounded like outside the courthouse when Sean Diddy Combs' mother emerged after the verdict was rendered. We saw her blowing kisses to people, and other people cheering them on. Now, not only has she been coming to court, as Lisa had just said, but his family, his sons have been coming. A short time separate from that, we saw out of the back entrance of this federal courthouse, the federal court, the jurors. Hey, you know what? Tell me what it is that's going on right now, guys. Who's yelling at me? All right, well, this is breaking news right now. Let's come back on camera for this, and let's bring in Lisa Evers here. We're learning right now, Lisa, that apparently bond has been denied.
Okay,
Well, I don't know if that's getting him. Let's use this one.
let's get Jeremy here.
Yeah, Jeremy, can you come back in here when you get a moment? So what we in position for was an argument that because the jury found Sean Diddy Combs guilty only on the lesser of the charges, that there was a presumption that he might be able to go home. The judge even asked him at one point, I imagine you don't want to go back to NBC. He nodded vigorously. Right, let's use this microphone. I'm not sure if that only works. And Jeremy, if you'll come in here too. Should we start with Jeremy's reaction?
Jeremy Sallin is with us. He's a criminal defense attorney and former Manhattan prosecutor. And the bail, the news says that bail has been denied.
Yeah.
So there is the law, the statute says in substance that bail would be denied, meaning that he goes in and stays in. There's not an exception. For example, there could be an exception where the prosecution says we consent, and there's other pieces to it as well. It could be a danger to somebody or not, but the bail being kept as it is not necessarily atypical because of the law, though one would believe the fact that he was not convicted of the top charge, and it's been a reduction, and people do walk free and come back and
Well, keeping the bail as it is means there's no bail.
Right. So he's remanded, he's held without bail. So this doesn't change the potential sentence, obviously, because it's still up to 10 years, but for the immediate gratification purposes of getting out, doing what he needs to do, and fighting this from the outside in terms of preparing for that sentencing, now it's been stripped.
And let me just add, this morning the prosecution was very adamant about wanting to have this extra time to present their argument to the judge, and it seemed obviously they were disappointed with the verdict, and it was very visible and very obvious, but they wanted to keep him behind bars, and they said, Your Honor, we need several hours to really get this whole argument together for you, and that's pretty stunning.
But again, you have to go back to what the law is and what it allows for, and generally speaking, barring some exception, the Bail Reform Act says you're staying, you're not just getting released. He was convicted of a crime. I think people, rightfully so, are disappointed and have questions from the public's perspective when you have such a horrific allegation that is not proven or substantiated beyond a reasonable doubt. And summarily, we're not talking about on the cuff. That's a pretty quick verdict that I think fooled many people thinking that there might have been a sex trafficking conviction. He's walking scot-free in terms of any allegation of coercion, force, fraud, violence. But he's still in custody.
Okay, so Jeremy, what about?
Can we just ask Jeremy, was it a difficult decision for the judge?
I think the judge is not finding any exception and following the law, and that's why he's staying there. The hope from the prosecution, though they didn't, the defense, though they didn't raise it specifically in their letter to the court, was that yes, there may be the Bail Reform Act, and that was what the prosecution relied on, since statutorily you can't just let him walk. The prosecution was hoping, part of the defense was hoping that the judge would look past that and say, he's returned, he just shows that he can follow a court order, he's not going to flee, and he's not a danger to anyone specifically or the community at large.
And then let me ask you this, in terms of the appealing this decision, what's the process now that the defense will have to go through in order to appeal the judge's decision of no bail?
I would expect that he's not going anywhere anytime soon, appeal or not. I think that they're going to follow the judge. I haven't heard what the judge said, so it's hard for me to just speak on an island here. But based on the law as we know it, I think the judge has ample ground to stand on and make this decision.
Let me answer that. Our Sharon Crowley has been watching this and telling us right now the judge says that the government was correct that the detention is mandatory for a Mann Act's conviction, what you're indicating, and the judge said that the limited exception to mandatory detention was not met. Sean Combs pointed to his duties as a father and a son, which we talked about, but that does not rise to the level of an appropriate exception, according to the judge.
Right, and to my point moments ago, that's what the law is. But we like to think that from the outside looking in, when someone's been charged with such egregious and horrible acts, and a jury of your peers says no so quickly, there should be a means to say you should be free, but there still is a conviction. The Mann Act qualifies. He's in custody. Whether that's a sign of the judge saying I'm going to harshly sentence him or not, we can't say, but let's not read into it. The judge is simply following the law, and this warrant does not warrant that 10 years that you're hearing about for each of the counts for Jay and
then Jeremy, explain, remind us again about the Mann Act.
So the Mann Act does not involve coercion or force or anything like that. The Mann Act simply says that if you're bringing someone across state lines in substance, engaging in prostitution, that violates the law. And I look at this case, not to really go too far off, this really, especially when you hear this verdict, should likely never have been in that courthouse. If anything, it should have been in that courthouse, meaning 100 Center Street or something similar, in a state courthouse for domestic violence, for abuse, for things like physical abuse and assaultive behavior, those types of things. But now we're here, it is what it is, but I think the prosecution really got humbled whether or not the judge is keeping Sean Combs in.
No, 100%. So now tonight will be spending the night in NBC.
It's hotter in there than it is out here, certainly for him, but there is now a horizon, the sun is rising for him. There is an out, and I'd like to think, based on the evidence and based on the finding of that jury, that out will be reasonable, and the defense said maybe 20 to 24 months. The prosecution is saying at least 50 to 60 months, even more. Where the judge falls, I don't know. But there's freedom for a guy who's looking at life in prison, which is unbelievable, whether he's in jail tonight or not.
And you told us that there's no minimum with the conviction, the prostitution conviction.
Correct, but there are guidelines, and the judges generally follow those guidelines. His ability to move along them and go up or down. But I think we have to look at what the evidence is and remember that the prosecution can still bring out in sentencing, though you could not do that in a state court, all of these other allegations and the evidence there that was not supported by the jurors who said not guilty, because it's not proof beyond a reasonable doubt in sentencing. It's not the same standard.
Right.
But do I think he's going to get 10 years? We've been wrong before? No, I do not. There is an out for him.
All right, and we'll continue watching this closely, and so that's it.
That's it for now. That's it for today.
Yeah, just to sum up, this has been a day of news on Sean Diddy Combs' case. First, the jury came back and rendered a not guilty verdict on the heavier charges of the indictment, and then there was this talk about whether or not he would be walking out of here. There were a lot of reasons why some people thought that might actually be the case, but at this point we've just learned that the judge has denied the application for bail, which means instead of walking out a free man today, Sean Combs will have to wait. And the judge noted, we're told right now by Sharon Crowley, that one of the incidents of violence against a former girlfriend was in June of 2024, after Sean Combs knew that he perhaps was illegal. Right. So there are things in the bag, so to speak, that the judge is taking into consideration, that as people out on the street maybe weirded on camera outside the courthouse today, at least not as somewhat free man on bail. That's the latest from here at the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan. We go back to you guys.
Arthur, before you go, maybe one more last question. We do know that by law that detention is mandatory under the counts he was convicted on, but maybe you could explain some other reasons, or the top reason, why the judge refused bail.
Well, it was actually, as Jeremy Salant so kindly shared just now, that bail typically isn't decided after the jury's decision, the jury's verdict. The bail is decided before the trial goes into play, right? And then they decide whether or not to hold a defendant in a case. That had already happened in this case. The decision was made to hold Sean Combs behind bars during the length of these court proceedings, and they're not over yet, right? We have to get through sentencing for this to actually truly be over. So what Jeremy was explaining was it would have required an exception to the decision that he already made, and he said based on multiple factors that it doesn't rise to the level of granting an exception at this time. I don't know if I put that in English.
Arthur, thank you very much. Lisa as well, and Jeremy. We've got more breaking news coverage after this break.
You listen.
Welcome back to breaking news now at 5:30. Sean Diddy Combs has been denied bail. Some breaking news here. Is going to be remaining behind bars following a partial verdict in his federal case. Manhattan jury found him guilty on 2 counts of transporting individuals for prostitution, but acquitted him on sex trafficking and racketeering charges. Now, despite the mixed outcome, the judge did rule that Diddy must stay in custody, citing consequences and seriousnesses of the convictions at hand.
Big news today. Let's get right to Lisa Evers, who's live in front of the courthouse. Lisa, what was the decision by the judge to deny bail for Diddy?
Well, Bianca and Natasha, first of all, this I'm sure was a tremendous disappointment to his mother and to his children and to his other family, and as well as to the supporters that we've seen out here outside of the courthouse. But in terms of the legality of it, according to Attorney Jeremy Sallin, who we've been speaking with this hour, he said that this is fairly standard in terms of a conviction on these prostitution transportation charges, which are the 2 counts that Diddy was found guilty of. Now, what the big argument and the big push to keep him behind bars obviously came from the prosecutors. I'm sure it seemed that they were very upset about the verdict from the jury not getting that RICO case that they had pushed so hard for against the better advice of some in the legal community who didn't think that was appropriate in this particular circumstance. They also lost out on the sex trafficking. That was not guilty. And they said at this morning, the prosecution said, Your Honor, we need several hours to come back and consider bail. Otherwise, they would have just considered the bail, the bail application and the bail situation right there shortly after the verdict was read. That was not the case. They were granted all these extra hours, the extra afternoon. Sean Diddy Combs sitting in a holding cell all the while this afternoon while they're crafting these letters to the judge to explain their positions. And the defense was arguing his mother, who we've seen many times here on Fox 5 going in and out of court every single day to support her son. She's 85 years old. The argument of the defense was that he's her primary caregiver, and certainly he is the closest relative to her, and that he also has a 3-year-old baby daughter, baby Love Sean Combs, and that's her name. And so that was their argument, but the prosecution he still remains a danger. They wanted him behind bars until the sentencing, and this was, I'm sure, was devastating to Combs and many of the family who seemed elated. They were elated, in fact, when they heard those not guilty verdicts, but it's one more step.
Early bird gets the worm. Late mom gets the waffle bockers.
The worst is over in one sense, in that he is no longer looking at life behind bars. On the other hand, his attorneys will have to file an appeal to this denial of bail. And remember, they had several bail applications throughout the course of the pre-trial conferences and after his arrest that were completely denied, and those were just eye-popping bail packages. $50 million, 24-hour armed guards, an Upper East Side apartment where there was limited access, no internet access for him, monitoring cameras, monitoring his activities, no guests allowed coming in, and that was denied. So we'll see what happens now. But this has to be a devastating blow for the family. The family's been very united and come together at this. We saw the 2 sprinters that have taken most of the family after 1 o'clock this afternoon, or a little bit earlier, a little bit after that, excuse me, after we found out that they found out the hearing would be at 5 o'clock. They all went out together to have lunch, or to have something to eat, if in fact they could do that. I'm sure many of them thinking, okay, you know what, Dad's coming home, my son's coming home, that type of thing, and he will not have to spend another night in the MDC, the Metropolitan Detention Center, which is a place nobody wants to go. And so that's what it is. It's just a devastating blow for them. They went from this high this morning of realizing that there's just those 2 counts of the prostitution transportation that they're facing, and that that can be dealt with over time. That's a far cry, Bianca and Natasha, from looking at the possibility of life behind bars, which would have been with the RICO case and many decades on the sex trafficking case, because that also carries a very, very heavy penalty. But But that's it for today so far. And then tomorrow tomorrow the courtroom will be, tomorrow the whole courthouse is on administrative leave, is an administrative closure, meaning that they will be, we're getting excuse me one second, we're getting interference from all the helicopters up above. So tomorrow the courthouse that you see right behind me, where the trial's taking place and where this bail hearing just happened, that will be closed for an administrative closure. There will be no activity there, no scheduled activity there. Friday, the courthouse, a federal holiday, closed. It's always closed on Saturdays and Sundays. So there was obviously a pressure to get this decision in before the holiday weekend, and I'm sure there's a lot of disappointment all the way around that they just couldn't bring him home tonight. Natasha and Bianca?
Yeah, Lisa, you mentioned that the $50 million bail package, which is pretty extreme. Why was that not enough to convince the court to let him go on bond here, especially with all those other extra things you're talking about?
Could you repeat that again? I'm sorry.
Could
you repeat that again?
The $50 million bond and bail package that you mentioned, including the other restrictions, those list of restrictions that you mentioned, you would think that would be enough for a judge to say, all right, I can agree to this, but it wasn't. So there was a reason behind that, and why was that?
Yes. Well, the reason behind that, and that's a great question. What the reason behind that particular denial was the fact that the feds, when you're in prison or you're in jail, they're monitoring all your calls, and they tell you straight up, we're monitoring all your calls. The lead prosecutor, Maureen Comey, told the judge that he had been using other people's phone privileges, because when you're a detainee, you only have a certain number of phone calls at a certain time, using other people's phone privileges to make calls to intimidate witnesses, and that this would not be allowed. And then, as we've heard throughout the day here today with some of our legal experts, that witness intimidation is a crime or an allegation they take extremely seriously here. But the question is that even a factor now, because he was not convicted of the sex trafficking or the RICO. So I'm sure it was very disappointing for the defense. For the prosecution, it was like, well, at least we got something, and they got the transportation for prostitution. But I think it was a big come down for the federal prosecutors. That's what pretty much every legal commentator and legal expert is telling us today. That's the latest here from federal court. Natasha, Bianca, back to you in the studio.
Yeah, definitely a high to a low. All right, Lisa, thank you very much.
And keep watching Fox 5 News for continuing coverage of the Diddy verdict. We will also be posting any updates on our Fox local app. Make sure you download that. It is free.
Hey, what's up, Jeff? How you doing today, Jeff Goodman? It looked like they're about to fight out there.
What a day this has been. First the verdict, Arthur, and then all those fans are out there all around you, looking at live pictures from the courthouse and seeing the crowd growing. It seems to be there. And then the judge denied bail for the hip hop over. What do you make of it?
I'm not glad. I'm sad.
Reaction and court indication of
Can you
that.
hear me out there?
I wish jail on no
I can
one.
hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me, Sharon?
Yes, I can. What do you make of the judge's decision?
Unless
The judge.
they're pedophile. I don't like pedophiles at all.
This is a little bit to explain, but everybody can stay with us. When a trial begins, a bail application is made, right? And in this case, Sean Diddy Combs' lawyers.
And the guys that just murder for nothing, of
Go
course.
through this process without having to be in MDC, which you and I both know as the Federal Detention Center. They wanted him to be able to do it from the comfort of home. They tried everything they could think of to get him out. It was denied. What the judge has done this afternoon, more importantly, not just our opinion, but that of legal experts, is say that still stands. Mr. Combs was not found innocent on all charges. His own legal defense in court said he has a propensity for violence. We have a video that shows him beating, just brutally beating Cassie Ventura in the LA hotel hallway. The judge also pointed out that once he knew that he was being watched by the feds, that there was yet another domestic violence incident. So he said he has concerns that the defense has not proven that Mr. Combs, beyond a shadow of a doubt, does not represent a threat of violence to people around him. That is basically what the judge has decided here today. And it was a little bit surprising for those who were completely absorbed in just the jury verdict itself, because Mr. Combs was found not guilty in 3 of the more severe counts, including one that found guilty on, could have landed him behind bars for the rest of his life. So everybody thought there was a turn here. The judge stuck to the laws and made their case. They made their case, and the judge said it doesn't meet their level for an exception. So we are holding on to you for now, and then we'll proceed with this case, Sharon.
Great. So Arthur, we know that Schmidt was actually in the courtroom when the judge denied bail, so we very commercial. But I wanted to ask you, what a day this has been. Found guilty on counts of transportation, prostitution, and then serious charges, racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking, which would have been my first contrast is alike. And at that time, and here from all the accounts of the court, they both got quite emotional about these praying to his family, and you can understand why his family, his relatives, his supporters might have thought that bail would be granted, but the judge is running out his violent history and one that he and his own defense team pointed to during this trial. So we are moving carefully, or I think Arthur this evening, I see all the bad line quotes out there from attorneys on both sides about this, and I also understand that he's going to be sentenced in October. He's going to say look up at it, and he's first arrested back in September. Again, the end of the summer of the year, of the incarceration rates, we see what the sentencing will be. We know each count carries a maximum of 10 years, which would have put their 20 years, but they might have currently, and then of course, accredited time served, so it would be much less time than that. Now, he's locked up. Arthur, what other you want to talk about? I want to ask you about the crowds. We've been looking at the crowds, and Alex, the producer's going to take a wide shot. We have Sean over there. She's running now, running in the newsroom. We have
There have been crazy antics going out here since the beginning of this trial. There have been people live streaming on social media this entire time, including the last 10 days when we had a day where it was over 100 degrees. There were still people out here. Now, given the jury note from last night and what the judge instructed, there was a sense that something was going to go down today. Friday is July 4th. Thursday, this court was going to be closed. So there were a lot of people who came out here already and were ready for a moment. They got that moment earlier than many people expected at 10 o'clock this morning when that verdict came down. The torque, emotional torque that you described in the courtroom when Diddy reacted by getting on his knees, putting his hands in a prayer motion and being super thankful was echoed out here. This is largely pro-Sean Diddy Combs group out here. There are a lot of people out here who believe that the prosecution in this case, if it was overzealous, that his race might have played a role in it. So there are a lot of people out here who believe that already. So when they received information of the jury's verdict, there was a sense of celebration out here. Sean Combs' mother came out here at one point. Everybody was cheering. She was blowing kisses to people in the crowd. And then certainly as we got closer to 4 or 5 o'clock towards the end of people's workday, and as this information had gone around, there were even more people who were coming to this area, and everybody has their phones up and are live streaming. So that's a mood here. Definitely more subdued now that there's this tidbit of information that's certainly the crowd right now. People are just beginning to hear about the fact that bail was denied for Mr. Combs. But that's what it's been like out here. Some tourists, but not all.
Thanks so much, Arthur. No, pretty fair. You know, we have some new information I'm going to tell you about just a second here. We talked about the sentencing crowd possibly being in October, but the defense is pushing back hard on that. They want sentencing as soon as even next week. They push back so we may get new information about that. Of course, they want this to be despite the setback today. I have to say, Arthur, this is still quite a tradition. It's been his defense team today. Much longer prison term. And so for people that he has to be locked up right now, he is facing much less punishment for crimes that jury found him guilty of today. So yeah, the circus with this Arthur as we go a little bit on our talking before, this case is generating national attention. Just think about Sean Diddy Combs, one of the most famous people in you know, and skyrocketed to fame in the 1990s and continued to grow and expand his businesses, all kinds of things, including constantly changing his name. All the names I can think of because each time, each brand has a different name associated with it. So that is part of the reason that some of this interest is about this case, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. And while we are in this moment absorbed with the recent breaking development that Sean Combs is not going to be a free man tonight, what the jury essentially did today is ensure that he will spend a good portion of his life as a free man. Going into today, it was not clear if he was ever going to see daylight again. Right? So today, with the jury's decision at 10 a.m., they gave him the opportunity to live his life out from behind bars. What the judge has decided now is because, as the judge put it, domestic violence is domestic violence, and the defense clearly said, he's a domestic violence, he's an abuser, but he's not the racketeering kind of guy the defense wanted to portray him to be. The judge said, we still got crimes here, and for that reason, it's not a total victory, but certainly if we take a step back in terms of what he was facing in this case, this is an entirely new day for Sean Diddy Combs.
They said he might not spend the rest of his life in prison only if they knew that some people doesn't even make it out of prison. Can you imagine how P. Diddy is feeling right now? Even though he know he don't have to spend the rest of his life, he might take his life right now. I mean, seriously, do you know how heartbreaking that is? Have anybody in here ever been to prison or jail and had to go back after court? That's very heartbreaking. He might not even make it out. And the way they say this prison is, oh boy.
Now we're gonna have to see.
What makes it stand out? We've heard a lot of
P. Diddy may be banging his head up against the wall right now, trying to kill himself.
But it's really interesting, and I'm eager to hear how Sean Diddy Combs reacted when he heard that his bail was denied. It was so emotional earlier today, whether he has your own reaction as to what happened. And obviously his defense is hoping not to wait too much for the sentencing, but already to happen in the next week as early as the next week. Apparently the government is not protesting that, and so that may happen in these cases. Find out as soon as possible. Usually on a Friday, even if it's not a holiday weekend, the jury is eager to get out. It seemed like all they needed was.
You guys got to think outside the box as well. Imagine how his kids feel. Imagine how his mom feel. You know, with this type of thing, people commit suicide. You know, it's too much pain. This is a lot of pain. This is very heartbreaking. Just being honest.
Coming to an agreement because of different, quote, opinions, plural. That's when the judge said, get back to dinner tomorrow morning, today, and get at it. The term deadlock was used a lot, but yesterday was the first full day of deliberation for a jury that heard nearly 3 months, 2 months of evidence and from 3 dozen more witnesses. So really it was a full day and some change, really enough to say that they were deadlocked. They just didn't agree yet. The judge was banking on that, sent them home, and maybe they're thinking about this weekend and said, you know what, I'm compelled to agree now. But I will say too, from our producer in the courtroom, we do have Sean Diddy Combs' reaction to bail being denied, and the description was the word stoic. They did not make an expression, vastly.
At this point, if you guys believe in God, this is where the faith come in at. You got to keep the faith.
And waved to his family. They cheered as he walked out of the courtroom. There was none of that for this most recent development just now. We're told he was absolutely stoic.
Thank you so much for that update. We appreciate your coverage, and we're going to let you get caught up and ready for the 6 o'clock news on Fox 5. And we're going to let our audience just look at some live pictures, and when those attorneys come out, if they do, or family members or anyone else who comments, we'll bring you back to the live. Thanks so much for being with us.
Never lose faith. Think about it. Just yesterday, he thought he was going to be gone for his whole life. You see how that flipped around? It can flip around again, and I believe it will. That's how God works. Hey, the devil work as well. Don't think the devil not real and not working. $10 years, only 10 years, and that's the max. Everything happens for a reason.
And you're looking at a live stream here. That is a picture of the courthouse in Lower Manhattan. A judge has just denied bail for Sean P. Diddy Combs, who was found guilty of trying to, guilty of one count, but not of the most serious counts he was facing. He had hoped to be let out on $1 million bail, and go back to Miami to Star Island, one of his homes. You're looking at two pictures right now. I want to explain that for you. One picture shows our chopper over the garage where you just saw the SUVs go in there, and they will be taking Sean Diddy Combs back to NBC tonight. He will remain locked up until his sentencing, and that is likely to happen. It was first talked about happening in October, but now it looks like his defense team trying to get that pushed up to as early as next week. The other shot you're looking at is the chaos.
Together, we need to bring more. Beef. It's what's for dinner.
Yeah, you're watching. This is live in the Fox 5 newsroom in New York City, and we have been covering this breaking news for you for several hours, and we're going to keep right on doing that. And we are hoping to hear shortly from the attorneys. And as I said, we are got a camera trained on the garage there. If we see it move, Sean P. Diddy Combs move to NBC, we of course will take it for you. And then we see some other reporters and media getting ready for their 6 o'clock newscast, and we have a 6 o'clock newscast on the Fox 5 as well. So we hope you'll keep it right here and keep streaming with us.
Serious charges, and that was sex trafficking.
Let's get right up to Lisa Everett, who's been following the case since it began nearly 8 weeks ago. She's live outside the courthouse in Lower Manhattan. Lisa, what is the reaction to today's verdict and the bail denial?
What's the reaction to today's verdict? Bianca and Natasha, what a day this has been here. You can hear the helicopters above us circling around, making it a little bit difficult to here, but let me tell you where we're at right now. The judge, late this afternoon, just a short time ago, denied bail to Sean Diddy Combs. And what the latest is they have asked for a shorter, expedited sentencing date. Because what's happening now is the prosecution wanted a sentencing date in October. The defense said that's too far, that's too far from today, it's too far away, it's too much time. And so what they ended up compromising on is next week on Tuesday, the prosecution and the defense will get together. They will try to figure out another date, a more suitable date, closer that both of them are happier with for the sentencing for Sean Diddy Combs. But this was a devastating blow for Combs, for his family, and for his supporters because he beat those two of the toughest charges, the RICO charge, the racketeering conspiracy charge. He also beat 2 counts on the sex trafficking charge and ended up with a guilty verdict on the 2 counts of the prostitution transportation charge, which carries a maximum, each one of those counts, of 10 years. Now, the attorneys are telling us it's unlikely he would get 10 plus 10, but anything is possible in this case, as we've seen so far. I mean, they were hoping, the defense was hoping, according to what I'm being told, that they would be able to deal with this bail issue this morning after the jury came back, took off the table two of the most serious charges, and that they would be able to deal with the bail hearing. His family, of course, hoping that Combs would be going home with them tonight, or at least be able to go out to dinner with them and not have to spend another night at MDC, the Metropolitan Detention Center, which is one of the most notorious federal detention facilities, jails in the country. They had numerous problems. There have been congressional investigations, all sorts of things. They're very bad conditions, a very old prison, and with a lot of structural problems there as well. So where it stands right now is, after the verdict came out, the final verdict this morning, Sean Diddy Combs was put into a holding pen in the courthouse while they were waiting for this hearing, which began around 5 o'clock this afternoon. Now what that means is he's going to go back tonight to MDC. He'll be spending, the holiday weekend at MDC instead of being with his family and being out. But so basically a split decision and a split victory for the defense team. And the prosecution is saying that he remains a danger, that he needs to be kept behind bars. And I think one of the things that weighed heavily in the judge's decision-making about saying no bail was the fact that even after Sean Combs knew that he was under federal investigation, he knew that the feds were watching him, that the FBI was watching him, and all of that he still continued to allegedly commit crimes. They referred to an incident with Jane, the woman who used the pseudonym Jane, where she was beaten after he had already been under surveillance and notified that he was under investigation by the feds. So a lot going on here, but right now the big news is no bail, and Sean Diddy Combs is going to be going back to MDC tonight. That's the latest from federal court. I'm Lisa Evers, Fox 5 News. Bianca and Natasha, back to you in the studio.
That's some interesting pieces of information you added there, Lisa. Appreciate it. Meanwhile, certainly not the outcome Diddy or his supporters were hoping for.
Joining us now to tell us what could be next is former New York City prosecutor Seth Zuckerman. Seth, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I think, first of all, what's your reaction to this bail denial and the judge saying that he's a violent man?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. The government put forth a very strong letter saying that incarceration was mandatory at this point, that bail must be denied unless he could find 2 exceptions. One is that he's not a danger and flight risk, and that he's not a danger to the community and he's not a violent person. And the judge clearly found that he's got a propensity for violence, found that the defense even conceded that during closing arguments.
Right.
Because, the defense in this case was, he's an abuser, but he's not a leading racketeering and a criminal enterprise.
It was a key strategy in
key
fighting the RICO.
And now it's backfired a little bit on the bail denial.
Sure.
The court clearly took that into consideration. The defendant's concessions said, even in your closing argument, you admitted that he's a violent person, and now I can consider that for bail, and I'm not going to let him out based on that, if the judge clearly found that he's a danger to the community.
Now, does this bail denial give us a hint at maybe what the judge might do when it comes to sentencing?
I'm not so sure that that's the case quite yet. The government submitted a letter today to the court saying that the sentencing guidelines in their estimation are 51 to 63 months. The The defense submitted a letter saying the sentencing guidelines in their estimation are 21 to 27 months. So it's somewhere around that, in that range that the judge is going to consider. It's up to 10 years on each count. As Lisa noted, and as everyone's noted, it's unlikely he's going to do anything close to 10 years on each of these counts. And obviously, the defense was hoping he'd be released today, and they would argue for sentencing that time served and that the 10 months that he's already done at the MDC, especially in those horrific conditions, is enough punishment for him in this case.
Well, according to Fox News Channel, the judge is suggesting October 3rd as the sentencing day. The defense is pushing for sentencing to be moved up as soon as possible. And they're arguing that most man cases are concerning making money via pimping or minors, neither of which apply to Diddy's case. What do you think the judge is going to do with that information?
So my understanding of what happened is when the defense asked for an expedited sentencing, and what the judge did is he put it on for next Tuesday, July 8th, for them to find out how quickly can the probation department issue what's called the PSR, the pre-sentence report, because the judge can't go to sentencing without the PSR. So he needs the pre-sentencing report, and he needs to know from probation, how long will it take for you to get me a pre-sentence report? Because that's what the judge relies upon. They do a guidelines calculation, and they make a recommendation to the court. They do a thorough investigation, and then they do that. So they're going back next Tuesday. The judge tentatively set the sentencing date for October 3rd, but he said, I'm open for expediting it if the probation department can get me an expedited pre-sentence report. So they're going back on July 8th, next Tuesday at 2 p.m. for a hearing to find out when they can set the sentencing for.
Lastly, before you go, I know we were talking earlier in the noon when this all came down, the verdict was read aloud. Your thoughts on just how today went?
I mean, today's a win for Combs, right? He was acquitted on the most serious count, the RICO racketeering count, which had a mandatory minimum jail sentence. He was acquitted on the sex trafficking count because the consent was a defense to that case. And he was acquitted of he was convicted only of the most minor charges, which was the prostitution charges, which don't even carry a mandatory minimum sentence. So it's a huge win for Combs. His attorneys are likely going to file what's called a Rule 29 motion at this point, which is for a judgment of acquittal. They'll file that within 14 days of the verdict, so that's within 14 days of today. And they'll ask the judge to overturn the verdict of those two counts. It's an uphill battle based on the evidence that I've seen, but they're obviously going to file that. And they're probably going to also appeal the judge's denial of bail. They'll go up to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals and appeal the denial of bail almost immediately.
Yeah, the judge even at some point conveying to Diddy that I gave you a shot at life. So in a way, it was a win, as you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that the bail denial is any indication of what he's going to do at sentencing. He even said that during this afternoon's proceeding, he's considering the violence factor, because that's what he needs to consider. Yeah. But when he's considering sentencing, he's considering a bigger picture, not just what constitutes a condition for bail.
This is us trying to read the tea leaves as we try to do so.
We all try to do so.
These last 7 weeks.
The only thing we do know, it was a big loss for the 7th District of New York.
So. Huge loss. Their press release that they put out was a press release basically acknowledging their loss. All they did was thank their law enforcement partners, but didn't even name the judge, didn't even really name Combs by name. It's a big loss for the Southern District after they spent millions of dollars on this prosecution.
That's Sacrament. Thank you so much for being here and for bringing us that legal insight.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Large crowds have been gathering outside the courthouse ever since the verdict was announced this morning.
And Fox 5's Arthur Cheam continues our coverage. Arthur, you've been live outside court all day. Describe what you've been seeing since this morning.
Bianca, Natasha, what we've seen this morning is a supersized version of what we've seen over the last 2 months. Every day there has been a presence out here of non-media. These are people who are on social media, who are constantly live streaming. Today, not only was it no exception, but the crowds only got bigger and bigger. And keep in mind that first verdict was announced around 10:30 this morning, and more people started coming down afterwards. I'm looking down the street right now, and I know we have a camera too. That picture goes for, as far as I can see, hundreds of people, everybody with their phones up in the air, and that's been the mood out here. They've had a very big presence. It has been a largely pro-Sean.
This right here is heartbreaking for him and his family, but if y'all know like I know, once he sit back and really think about what happened today, he's going to be happy. 9 times out of 10, P. Diddy is finna do a few weeks up to a few months, and then probation. He was just facing life. So, of course, yes, his heart is broke. His family heart is broke. But Once everybody sit back, trust me, they're gonna be so happy and time flies. Y'all know how time flies today. He'll be out very soon.
At some points where it was completely shut down in both directions. This is a very busy thoroughfare that connects east side from west side down here. Right now we see there's a fire truck here. It could be heat related. We don't know. Their posture isn't really that urgent, but it's quite the spectacle out here. Probably continue to be for the rest of tonight. That's the latest from the federal courthouse here in Lower Manhattan. Look at Champ Upside New.
And then look how they got his next court date. They was talking about in October. They got it to next week. Wow. This thing finna go fast. I don't know if y'all know too much about jail, but he'll be out very soon. Very, very, very soon. I thank y'all so much for attending my live. I really appreciate it. My content, hopefully you guys is feeling my content and y'all into the type of stuff that I talk about in my videos and stuff. If you are, please go over there and subscribe. Check my videos out. Tanya is one of my #1 people. Tanya always show love. Tanya, I got a question though. Is it Tanya or Tanya? I got a question for you if you still there, if you listening. I'm sure you probably know what it is already. Tanya don't want to answer? Or is you probably over there cooking some greens? I know you be cooking your butt off. Hot water cornbread. I'm already knowing. Check Tanya page out. For real, for real. Tanya be cooking up some stuff. Check Tanya channel out. Tanya be cooking, taking pictures of all that good food. Be having my mouth watering.
In October, but of course the defense team eager to move that up, and they'll have a hearing on that next week, of course. And Combs was convicted on 2 counts of transportation to engage.
Purdue Global made it possible for us.
One of the reasons I chose Purdue Global was just the opportunities that they offer. Flexibility was free.
Purdue Global's opportunity for working adults is pretty amazing because he got to use his work experience and take courses that will give him the opportunity.
I will be dropping the video later on this evening. It's a motivational video to inspire and encourage you to keep going, to all of my small YouTube creators. Never ever give up. You done made it too far. Tomorrow can be the day that you blow up and hit 1 million views. You did.
And it appeared by the body language and by the look on the attorneys' faces, as well as Sean Diddy Combs, they were surprised by that. They thought that they really had a good argument. that he should be able to be released pending sentencing, and they thought because he was convicted of the lesser charge, and they're saying that sentencing guidelines require that he receive a lower sentence, a shorter sentence, and that it also would require that he be released on bail. The judge did not agree with that, and he was very clear about that. But the interesting thing here, Sharon, when we were sitting in the courtroom listening to this, what the judge ended up doing, the judge ended up quoting the defense from their closing arguments, as well as different things that they had said during the trial, and they used the defense's own words against them as his reason and as proof as to why Sean Combs should not receive bail. So I'm going to go over some of those with you here right now. First of all, he said that he totally disagreed with the defense that the crime that he was convicted of does not warrant detention. He goes on to say, look, during the trial, the defense conceded Sean Combs' violence, that it did in fact happen. Quote, it happened. We own the domestic violence. That's what the defense said when it was talking to the jury. The defense also referred to the Cassie Ventura video, that infamous video where he is brutally beating her in the hallway of that hotel room. And the defense's words during the trial, imagine it's horrible. This is what the defense is saying to the jury. It's horrible for Miss Ventura and her parents. Quote, domestic violence is the issue here with this case. The video is very much domestic violence. The judge saying those very words that Sean Combs' defense attorneys told that jury is proof that, quote, he is unable to show the court that he is not a danger to others if he is released on bail. So his defense attorney, one of his primary defense attorney, he stood up and he put on the best case that he could, the best argument he could to receive bail, saying, look, he surrendered his passport, he would only be traveling to certain jurisdictions in New York and Florida, New Jersey and California, and we will stipulate other conditions if the court would implement any other type of conditions. The prosecution then got up and said, I want to give you a couple of quotes from the prosecution because they were very passionate about this. The prosecution got up and looked at the judge and said, Judge, the only thing about this man that is exceptional is, quote, his wealth, violence, and brazenness. He has shown no remorse, and there is no basis to release him on bail. And the judge agreed. So he is going to remain in prison behind bars until he is sentenced. Now, right now, as you were talking at the top there, Sharon, the sentencing, the judge originally scheduled that for October 3rd. However, his defense attorneys, they want to expedite that sentencing, and they want to have it sooner, and they are going to have a hearing that's going to be held next Tuesday, July 8th.
Linda, thank you so much for that update. Let me just tell you, I have some new information to bring you. We are just getting some information about what Combs said to his family after bail was denied. And according to the Fox News channel, he turned to address his family. He said, quote, we will make it through this. Love you all. I feel good. See you when I get out. See you when I get out. And he got his hands together as if he was praying. So we'll see, Linda, all the remarks that you were making had me wondering, this judge was pretty tough on bail, really listening carefully to his closing arguments and what using, as you mentioned, the defense's own words against him. I wonder if this will have any impact on sentencing itself. As you know, Combs facing 2 10-year maximum sentences that could be served concurrently. So we'll see if this has any, we can read the tea leaves and see what this could mean for how many years behind bars Combs will be facing on these charges.
Well, the judge did talk about that too, and he said, quote, the two sides here have a great divide on what it is they think his sentencing should be. First of all, let me go to my notes here. The defense says that the sentencing guidelines for what he has been convicted of is 21 to 27 months in prison. So that would be about 2 years. And he has already been behind bars for 10 months. So that would mean that he would end up going to prison for just over 1 year. That's what the defense says. The government says the sentencing guidelines require a sentence of between 51 and 63 months, which is just over 4 years to just over 5 years.
Straight facts, baby K, straight facts.
But his defense,
Nothing but facts, though.
Their argument, they also said to the judge, as far as any type of bail and as far as sentencing
Real talk.
goes, that he has been, quote, a model prisoner since he's been in prison, that his record has been spotless, he has been, quote, a remarkable prisoner, that he has lived up to his obligations, and that, quote, I think we should trust him. He is not going to flee. The judge did not buy that argument.
Linda, thank you so much. We appreciate your coverage and your reporting on this. And everyone else who's been watching our live coverage from our YouTube channel and our Fox Local app, keep it right here, because as we get any updates, we'll cut right to it. If we hear from the attorneys, family members, or anyone else on this very significant day for Sean Diddy Combs as he heads back to MDC tonight, we wait his sentencing. Thanks so much for staying with us.
No, I don't think he will flee, but I think a lot of people will get hurt. I still think a lot of people gonna get hurt behind this. Honestly, I didn't know P. Diddy was that tight. The way he beat that girl up, man, that wasn't cool. That wasn't cool at all. Not only that, just keeping it all the way a buck.
sex trafficking. He will remain in jail until his sentencing in October.
And this is a live look at Lower Manhattan, where we are waiting for Sean Combs' family to leave the courthouse. They're expected out any moment now. Fox News' Lisa Evers has been following this case from the very beginning. She joins us live in Lower Manhattan with more on today's developments. Lisa?
Well, Natasha, Bianca, from the morning, the elation of the morning, finding out that he would not have to deal with that racketeering charge that could have put him away for life, to the disappointment this evening for Sean Combs' family and for his supporters when the judge denied him bail. Now, this was something that happened. You mentioned this sentencing date. The October sentencing date is one that the prosecution has been pushing for, that they set, and then they also told him that the defense wanted a much earlier date. So what they settled on, the compromise, was that there will be a conference next week, a planning conference with the prosecution and with the defense, sitting down and trying to figure out a schedule a little bit earlier. The issue, the sticking point there with this sentencing date is that they usually do a pre-sentence investigation and evaluation. That takes a certain amount of time. The defense said, hey, we'll waive that, but it's not clear if that will be allowed or not. So we won't have the final sentencing date until until sometime later on next week at the earliest, most likely. But what this means today, this decision, Sean Diddy Combs goes back to the notorious Metropolitan Detention Center, a federal detention facility, federal jail that nobody really wants to be into. But I want to bring in, because there's another aspect of this case that we haven't really discussed thoroughly, is that whole prosecution side and how they're dealing with things. I want to bring in my colleague Linda Schmidt, who was in the courthouse during this bail hearing. And Linda, the prosecution was very adamant this morning about not getting bail for Sean Diddy Combs and fighting that any bail request. What did you see today?
The same thing continued this afternoon when she got up to speak after one of his defense attorneys, Agnifilo, got up and laid out his reasons for why he should be given bail and he should be allowed to go home. She then got the opportunity to respond to that. And she was full-throated about it. She was very passionate about it. She was very stern. And I'm going to give you a quote here. She said, the only thing about this man, obviously referring to Diddy Combs, that is exceptional is, quote, his wealth, violence, and brazenness. She said he has shown no remorse and there is no basis for him to be released on bail. Period. And stop. That's it. She sat down.
And wow, and she's had chapter and verse ready to go for absolutely everything. And a lot of the defense attorneys I've talked to that have been had cases against her have said she's been very fair, but it really seemed like she put an extra amount of effort into this particular case.
Well, it did seem that way. I mean, you've been here covering this since day one, and I said this to Lisa earlier. You have just done a spectacular job covering this. Really, as a journalist, I mean, I really appreciate it. I appreciate the great journalism, so you've done a fabulous job. But yeah, I can imagine with just from what I saw in court today, and you can tell that the prosecution is upset. I mean, they said, as you know, when you're sitting in the courtroom, they have the front row. All the prosecutors are at the front table. The second table, Diddy's attorneys, and then the third table, some of Diddy's attorneys and Diddy himself.
Right.
But in the front row, when his attorney, Agnifilo, was talking and giving reasons for why he thought he should be released on bail, every single one from the prosecution, they're looking down, no facial expression, nothing. And then after he was done, that's when she got up. She said her piece, and she was very clear that there was no chance that he deserved bail, and the judge agreed.
And that's what she was fighting for, and that's what she was pushing for.
Right.
And also, this is Maureen Comey, who was the lead prosecutor and a very highly respected person, a very hardworking. Clearly, her team put a lot of time and effort into it. But I think for a lot of the jurors, it was just hard to put in criminal context things when, after the alleged crime happened, the victims were back in contact with Combs, or they agreed at the time the alleged crimes happened and then changed their tune after that. But she kept drilling down on this incident that happened in September of 2024 after he knew he was under federal investigation and yet still went ahead and beat Jane. So they were basically saying that was, that showed that he had no regard for the law, or that was even afraid or even concerned about, hey, they're watching me, I better...
That's right. Or that he could be trusted in any way.
Exactly.
Agnifilo...
And then we'll send it back up.
Okay, just real quickly, he was saying as part of his argument, he's a model prisoner, he's been spotless, he's a remarkable prisoner, he's lived up to his obligations, and quote, I think we should trust him. He is not going to flee. Well, the judge obviously did not.
Okay, well, they did agree. They did agree with that. And then let's just show, Christian, can we show a little bit here? Let me step aside if you don't mind for a second here. Okay, so what you're looking at right here, do you see the black? You see these black vehicles, the big Suburban, and then there's two black Mercedes Sprinters that are are right behind it that have been carrying the family members. You see all the media, and I want to tell you that the media has been here from all over the world, converging on this to try and to just try and report this amazing story. I mean, it's really a mind-blowing story. One of the most famous men in the world, having the more sordid details of his personal life. Here's one of the Diddy's supporters here, coming in, one of the people that has been there with the mother. She's getting into the SUV here, and obviously not having the result that they want. And of course the crowd is here. And they're getting them in. There was NYPD, as you can see. Christian, can we pan over here to this side? You guys see the flashing? You see the flashing gates there with those roll-down metal gates? That's where the judges and certain VIPs and I think certain detainees do go in and out. That's a very secure area. You see the NYPD is here in full force. Now, since the beginning of this trial, there have been people, this individual over here, yelling and screaming. There have been people screaming and yelling pretty much all day, every day, every hour, since we've been out here. Different people, not just, that's the first time I've seen this gentleman. But you see the NYPD is here. They set up the barricades. They came out here this afternoon, and they basically were getting people, they were getting people organized, putting up the barricades. They're keeping people back so that there's no type of nobody gets hurt by a traffic accident. They're also trying to give the Combs family some sort of dignity as they leave here, and also people are shouting things at them, and also shouting things at them, and then also trying to get a soundbite or trying to get a glimpse of them making a U-turn here. You see the police are trying to keep everything organized here. NYPD is set up. They actually set up this entire media row that we're in right now. You see them starting to leave here. Here's another one of the Sprinters. And they've been really trying to keep this organized so that people are not getting knocked around. Because you can see, Christian, you can zoom in there a little bit, okay? So you can see how close it is. Like, you see the microphones on the extension wands there that people are using. Those cameras are all there in case any of the lawyers come out. Very unlikely that any of the prosecutors will. But there's also, a chance that maybe one of the defense attorneys may come out and give us a soundbite. That's what all the media, including our Fox 5 crews, are out there for too. And then the Sprinters, the police are helping them to make this U-turn so that they can get off this block. And part of the street at the other end, on the Chatham Square side, has been shut down so that there's no traffic coming through now until they get this. Basically, this is like a mini dignitary motorcade here. Here's the Sprinter number 2 here. And those of you in the hip-hop community, you know the Sprinter is the preferred way of transporting music, artists when they're going to the different events and public events and concerts and things of that nature. And police are trying to facilitate this here. The crowd pretty quiet right now, and they're making their way out, and they are leaving without Sean Combs because the judge today, and he was denied bail. So what that means is that he will leave the holding cell that he was in all day today. He will be taken back to the Metropolitan Detention Center, which is right on the Brooklyn waterfront. A very notorious place, very uncomfortable place, even in the best of circumstances. And the lawyers from both sides, prosecution and defense, they have a date for next week to sit down and try and hammer out a sentencing date that is sooner than the October date that was proposed by the prosecution. Okay, they're opening up the street here, and they're allowing the traffic now to come in westbound from Chatham Square, and you see cars coming out of here. I'm not sure who that is, but we guess law enforcement, because they have a full window tint, which is illegal in New York State, unless you have a special permission. or have visual problems that you need to have a full window tint. So that's the latest from here. And let me send it back to you in the studio. Reporting live from federal court. Linda Schmidt was with us earlier. I thank my colleague Linda Schmidt for being with us, and we're sending it back to you in the studio.
All right, Lisa, thank you. You and both Linda, excellent reporting on all of this, giving us a lot of color on what's happening there. For continuing coverage on the Sean Diddy Combs verdict, keep it right here on Fox 5. You can download the Fox local app on your phone to watch our live newscasts and more wherever you are. We are expecting a press conference at any moment, and we're going to bring it to you live. We'll be right back.
I can tell you that I talked to Sean. For those of you who know, I've known him for almost 20 years. And he's thankful, he's relieved, and he thanks the jurors. I think the jurors did what jurors do, which is they saw through an overcharged, overzealous, kind of a crazy prosecution, and they did the right thing. And that's why, when people talk about tyranny and fascism and everything else, as long as you've got a jury system that works, that's what separates us from the rest of the world. And Sean is thankful. As a helicopter parent, I couldn't be prouder, and I'll let them talk. I don't want to steal their thunder. That doesn't really, the bail, I think, is besides the point. He was acquitted of the trafficking, he was acquitted of the RICO. Those were always, I thought, as an observer, a ridiculous use of taxpayer resources. This case was never what it was made out to be. This case was ridiculous in so many different ways, and I'm just thankful that the jury saw through it.
But he's still facing prison time.
Sean is, the interesting thing about prison is it's a timeout, and he's had a lot of time to reflect, and he's in a good place mentally, and frankly I'm proud of him. And by the way, for those of you who may miss it, the defense didn't put on a single witness. The defense tried their case within the prosecution case, and at the end of the day, it's a colossal failure by the prosecution.
It's not a party till we're all here.
All right. Thank you all for being patient. Am I speaking loud enough? You all can hear me okay? All right. Today's a great victory. It's a great victory for Sean Combs. It's a great victory for the jury system. You saw that the Southern District of New York prosecutors came at him with all that they had. They're not stopping, but one thing stands between all of us and a prison, and that is a jury of 12 citizens. And we had a wonderful jury. They listened to every word, and they got the situation right, or certainly right enough. They acquitted him of the sex trafficking, which he was absolutely innocent of. They acquitted him of the racketeering conspiracy that he was absolutely innocent of, and all of the components to it. The kidnapping, he was innocent of that. The arson, he was innocent of that. The obstructing justice, he was innocent of that. And that is no longer just me saying that. That is the verdict of our jury. So today's a great day. Today is a win. Today is a victory of all victories for Sean Combs and our legal team. And I want to say one thing. There are very few people around whom a legal team could coalesce and become one. And Sean Combs is that person, and we are all blessed to be part of it. And I am now done speaking to you, and I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Garagos.
All right, I first want to thank my client, Sean Combs, for trusting us, myself and everybody here, this incredible dream team that he put together. Without him, we would not have been able to do this. He is incredible. I want to thank him. I want to thank the jury for putting such great care into this case. They came early every single day, and I want to thank them, as I said in my opening, standing between all of us and the drastic consequences of the criminal convictions of sex trafficking and RICO is a jury of our peers. And I thank them. I want to thank the judge, and I want to thank, despite the terrible conditions at the MDC, I want to thank the good people who worked there, who ensured that we had sufficient amount of time to prepare for trial. It is extremely difficult to prepare for a federal case in the conditions at the MDC, and they did everything they could to make that happen. I want to thank them. I also have been saying this since the beginning of this case. Sean Combs has not sexually assaulted anybody. I've been saying this for months. We've said it with each lawsuit that came out, and today that was proven true. The media got it wrong about Sean Combs every single day for nearly 2 years. I ask that for every time you guys see a civil lawsuit, criminal complaints or criminal indictments, you actually take a look and analyze these and see whether or not these are actually going to stand up in a court of law. Because today they did not. He has not sexually assaulted anybody, certainly hasn't sex trafficked anybody, and the jury found that today. Thank you. I am now going to pass this over to Mr. Steele.
Good evening. Good evening. I want to thank the ladies and gentlemen to my right and my left. There's not a better group of honest and ethical, hardworking, and zealous lawyers, and I especially wish to thank Mark and Tenny for allowing me and everyone else to come together. On behalf of my family, myself, I wish to thank you all for being here and writing truthfully about a man wrongly charged with most of the crimes, and that we all must remember that allegations are nothing. And I'd like to thank Sean for letting me be here. Thank you all. God bless you.
Thankfully, in our country, we have a right to a jury trial. And thankfully, Mr. Combs took that right. He actually battled for his freedom, for his innocence. He did it. And a lot of times, you know, people are too afraid to do it. And he did it, and we're so happy that he did. We're proud of him. We are completely honored that he put his faith and his trust in us to fight for him. Today is a major win to show what the system can do. We appreciate and we're so thankful to the jury. Thank you to the court. Thank you, New York. It's been a pleasure being here and fighting in your district. Thank you so much. And listen, we appreciate the media. We do. There was a lot of reporting on the accusations. There was a lot of reporting on the indictment. Please report just as vigorously on the acquittal of these counts, please, because that's also the right thing to do. Thank you.
Sure. Good afternoon. So, first of all, I want to thank this wonderful team behind me. I am so happy that they allowed me to join it. I would like to say that I've done a lot of trials, but this is probably the most special one to me. And most important, I want everyone to know the job is not done yet. We're not finished. The job is not done yet. And so I want to, again, thank Mark, Tenny, and the rest of these wonderful lawyers behind us. They did a fantastic job. And like those before me have said, our system, the jury system, is important. We need good people to serve on juries. We need good people to come and say a person is not guilty. Take that courage to do that. It's okay. We want you to serve on juries. This particular jury was a special jury. It was fantastic. It listened. It paid attention. It put the nonsense to the side. It put the distraction to the side and came to a lawfully good, just conclusion. Juries are important. Juries are important. But more important than that, I think, is people wanting to be on juries. So for all of you all listening, for all of you out there in the public, please accept the call. Become a juror and do the right thing. Thank you very much.
It is such a privilege to be a part of this legal team, this amazing legal team, and to represent Sean Combs. And this is a reminder to everyone, I hope, about the flaws in the criminal justice system, and for everyone to take a second look when the government charges people with crimes, and especially when the Southern District of New York does here. And so I hope everyone takes that seriously. And we take this as an enormous victory and win. This is a huge win. He was acquitted of sex trafficking, acquitted of RICO conspiracy, and he will be able to sleep well at night knowing that. Okay, thank you to everyone. I appreciate you.
Well, I want to start just by thanking my family and the families of each of the lawyers here for giving us the space and the time to serve Sean and to fight for Sean. I want to thank the court for giving us a fair fight. And you see what happens when you have a good defense team come together in front of a court that gives the defense team a fair fight. And finally, I just want to thank Sean for giving me the honor and the privilege of serving him. Thank you.
I feel like there's not a lot more that I can say because these wonderful people have really said all there is to say, but I do want to thank Sean for the privilege of this opportunity to help him clear his name after all, with the Southern District coming after him, guns blazing. It really is a testament to the fact that when you get a fair trial and a jury of your peers listens to the evidence, they will do the right thing. And I just want to say again how proud I am to be part of this team and to have helped Sean get a just verdict.
Are you looking to be open-minded? Now, can anyone share what Mr. Bowles wanted to say is important? Are you ready to stand and bring them here? No. So, I'm not going to talk about the bail decision because it's still a pending, unresolved matter. And I don't think we're going to take any more questions. I want to thank you all. You guys have been so diligent and dedicated. I pass you guys in the rain. I walk by you in the sun. And you're all out here every day. I just want to thank you. But I don't think we're going to take any questions. So a lot of these things are still in process. I mean, the one thing I'm going to leave you with this. We are not nearly done fighting. We are just getting started. To win this and to defeat the prosecutors from the Southern District of New York takes effort from beginning to end. Today was a major step in the right direction, but we fight on and we're going to win and we're not going to stop until he walks out of prison a free man to his family. Thank you all for coming.
Yes? No, not that we know of. I mean, I doubt they'd speak out here anyway. They, yeah, everybody's taking their stuff off. Yep. Yeah, that's why I was actually just on the phone's desk. So. Oh yeah, no, I got you. See?
Tommy, that's very true. P. Diddy blessed though. I ain't gonna lie, Lord. You know, P. Diddy finna come home. He'll be out by the summertime, or way before the summer. Next summer, he'll be out. P. Diddy will be out this year. He definitely will be out this year. If you know like I know. That's how the system works. But just being honest though, honestly, being honest, yeah, P. Diddy needs to be on some probation. Some type of parole, probation, some type of papers. Just being honest, because P. Diddy is a dangerous man. I'ma just keep it a buck. I told y'all, every time y'all come over here on my channel, I gotta keep it a buck. And it's just a process that have to be done. Y'all just seeing the lawyers, the defense. They know. Look, P. Diddy, he's not facing, P. Diddy not getting life no more. P. Diddy is, listen, all of this is about to be over with in no more than 2 years. But anyway, I would like to thank everybody who came and joined my live. I really do appreciate y'all. I hope y'all having a blessed day. I hope y'all keeping God first. And I hope y'all staying prayed up, because that's the way to be. Do you hear me? I love y'all, and please go check out my content. If you haven't, if you into, you know, what I be talking about. If you ain't, that's fine too. I understand. If you is, go on over there please and hit the subscribe button. Check my videos out. And let me know what you think. Once again, thank y'all so much. And I hope y'all having a good evening. Y'all be safe out there. And I guess I will get on about y'all right about now. Right about now.